Good afternoon, everyone. In the old Greek city-state, the populace were categorized into three segments. The first one, they are idiots. And the second one, tribesmen and women. And the third one, the citizens. The first one, the idiots. They are idiots because they think within their narrow mindset, and that's what makes them idiots. Well, the second one, the tribesmen and women, they are tribes people because they look at the world from the prism of ethnicity. And ethnicity here does not mean one tribe. It could be religion. It could be racism. And the third one, the citizens. They are the ones who love their countries. They are the ones who are ready to sacrifice for their generation and generation yet to be born. And I hope I'm not addressing idiots. I'm not addressing tribesmen and women. I am addressing citizens. Therefore, good afternoon, dear citizens. It is possible to convert idiots and citizens into tribesmen and into citizens. So it is possible to convert idiot and tribesmen and women into citizens through constant reminding, through law enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about this continent, Africa, we are a continent that welcomes other civilizations in the world. We are always in the business of welcoming other civilizations. And when we talk about disruption of African civilization and exploitations of African resources, it is not only the Europeans who did it, the Arabs did it. They were in Africa and they took us into slavery in the 7th century. We don't talk about it as loudly as we should, because Arabs were here in the 7th century and they took us into slavery. And after that, the Portuguese came. When they came, they said they discovered us. When we were here, they said they discovered us. They said they discovered our mountains, which we have lived next to for ages. And they said they discovered that. The French were here. The Portuguese were here. The Spaniards were here. The Italians were here. The Belgians were here. All with their arrogance. And they made their way. And in 1884 to 1885, those colonial powers sat in Berlin, Germany, in 1884 to 1885, and they divided Africa into spheres of influence. And some people thought that Africa never resisted. They were mistaken. We did. We resisted. Those who are keen readers of African history will remember King Jaja of Opobo in the present-day River State. He resisted, and they overthrew him from his position because he resisted the colonial powers. And not only King Jaja of Opobo, many of you who are keen readers of African history will remember Nana of Esikiri of the present-day Delta State. They resisted. And if you go to the northern part of the country, you remember Sheikh Muhammad At-Tahir of Sokoto. He resisted, but they fought him. After they fought him, he ran into exile in present-day Gombe State in 1903, and they followed him to Gombe State. They fought him, and he was beheaded by the colonial powers. We should never forget that. So today, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about African culture, when we talk about African values and culture, sometimes I ask myself about this thing we call development, because I have problem and difficulty in defining development in the perspective of the colonial powers. What is this thing called development? Let me quote the former president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere. He said when they asked him about development in one of his interview, he said development from where we sit cannot be measured from what the European call GDP. That to us is not development. Development cannot be understood to mean that we must build skyscrapers. That is not development to us. Development cannot be understood to mean that we must go to the moon. That is not development to us. He said development to us is when we have an environment where there is spiritual, social, political, and economic contentment. So let the Americans go to the moon, but we want water in our household. That is development according to Nyerere. So today, ladies and gentlemen, there is one problem that I think Africans need to work at, and that should be our mind. The Europeans have succeeded, or the colonial powers have succeeded in capturing our mind. And there was a saying, if you want to conquer a person, just catch catch his mind. Because once somebody catch your mind, he will sit pretty at home and predict what the minds will do. They have captured our education system. They have captured our cultural aspect. And if you want to believe me that they have captured our educational system, look at the courses we are teaching in our tertiary institution. We teach political science, but what science are we teaching? Are we telling our students about Shaka the Zulu in South Africa? No, we don't do that. We talk about Max Weber. Are we telling them about King Jaja of Opobo? Nobody taught us about him. We only read by ourselves. But they taught us about Plato. They taught us about Aristotle. They taught us about Socrates. But they didn't taught us about our own great leaders who exist in the early days. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to quote the former president of Mozambique, the independent president of Mozambique, Samora Moses Machel, when he said in one of his unguarded moments, he said, Africans, sometimes those who were colonized by the British, they look at those who were colonized by the French, and they told them, look, we have better colonizers. We have better food and better cuisine, as well as better colonizers. And those who are colonized by the French, they said, no, we have better food and better colonizers. Then Samora Moses Machel of Mozambique said, how can slave be saying how good one's slave master is better than the other? They are all slaves, but they were saying that they were better because they were colonized by other slave master. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to commend a book written by that African-American Pan-Africanist called Miseducation of Negro. And I would like to everyone here to go and read the book, Miseducation of the Negro. He said, we were miseducated. We were miseducated. The name of the author is Carter G. Wilson. Those two are keen readers of African history. I would like to commend the book for you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by a story of a young man called Kunta Kinte. And there was a film produced by African American Alex Haley. The name of the film is called Root. And in Root, Alex Haley dramatized how a young man was taken from Jifri village, now in the Gambia. And when they took him from Jifri village in the Gambia, they took him to United States of America. The first thing that they did to him, and this is how I understand what they did to us, and they changed our mind, they changed our everything. When they took him to the United States of America, they asked him that he must change his name. They were beating him that he may change his name from Kunta Kinte to something called Toby. They beat him. And this is how I understand how they beat our Africanness out of us. This is how they beat our Africanness out of us. They beat Kunta Kinte that he must change his name. And that is why you see today many of our women wear wigs from dead women in Asia. From dead women in Asia. That is why you see we don't, look at me right now, waxing in English language. Meanwhile, I am Hausa. I'm supposed to address this assembly in Hausa. But this is me waxing in English language. I look forward to the day when I will address this assembly in Hausa or Kiswahili or any other language recommended by the African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, without belaboring the issue, I would like to say, those of you who are present in this assembly, please go out now into the world. Go out into the world recognizing that Africa will be built village by village. Go out into the world recognizing what the Chinese long recognize, that the greatness of the ocean is because the ocean does not reject any river. So go out into the world recognizing that Africa will fail or succeed on leadership. And leadership means servanthood. So go out there. The world have seen too many comedians. The world now want actors. Who will serve? Go out and be blessed. Thank you.